Hey guys, it's Joey Goodsir, co-host of Sports Scouts, and before we get into the episode, I'd like to let all of you in on an exclusive announcement. We've got an exciting project coming out of the TFS newsroom in the coming weeks, and we want you to be the first to hear about it. It's called The Forest Scout Presents, and it's basically your one-stop shop for all podcasts on the Forest Scout. From sports shows like our show, The Water Cooler, and the Halftime Podcast, to political shows like the new Politically Correct, and everything in between. Check out this new podcast channel to receive easy on-the-go access to all Forest Scout podcasts. The channel is on Spotify and Anchor.fm, and it's currently being distributed on Apple, Google, PodBean, and all of the major podcast networks. So help support student multimedia journalism and hit the subscribe button for us. Michael and I will be making plenty of appearances, so if that's any incentive, there you go. Thanks for listening, and enjoy the show. Welcome to Sports Scouts. I'm Joey Goodsir.
I'm Michael Rope.
And we're recording this episode 2.7 on Wednesday, March 11th, 2020. We're going to talk college basketball, Spike Lee, and Marquee Sports Network. We'll also talk about the story that has really taken over everything at the moment, which is coronavirus. Specifically, we'll be examining its impact on different sports, especially a huge sporting event coming up in March Madness and more. But first, Michael will not give you some scout scores, as our guest this week is Connor Clark. We recorded a segment with him last week on winter sports and how the scouts did through the winter season, kind of like how we did with AJ Shaw after the fall season. So look forward to that, and we're going to move right into our first segment, Show Me What You've Got. All right, so it's been a while since we've been in the studio recording a full episode here, so a lot has happened, and my Show Me What You Got definitely has to be John Beilein dropping out of the Cavaliers job as head coach. It was just announced yesterday that he's going to be an analyst on BTN for the March postseason here in college basketball, but this was a big development mid-season, and it really seemed to center around kind of a franchise culture problem, which is unfortunate for me from a Michigan fan perspective, because it's just all too predictable that his coaching was not accepted in an NBA that's very player and star power driven, as opposed to fundamental, coach driven games. And he's a very traditional fundamental coach, and players didn't love that, and so that's why he's parting ways with the Cavaliers. The thing that is surprising, though, is just how fast it's happened. So that's a big thing. I expected it to potentially happen, but not in the middle of the first year. So this was a big development for sure. There are different rumors circulating about what he's going to do, whether he's going to get hired at another Big Ten school, come back to college basketball. Maybe there's rumors about the Notre Dame job. I know there was rumors about the Indiana job. In my opinion, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think he's going to either go two directions, either coach like a mid-major program, as his frustrations about college basketball are still there and are still the reason why he left, or he's going to just retire. At this point, I mean, he's had a lengthy and successful career, so that's all possible. So we'll see what happens. But really, kind of an unfortunate story for me, right at the top of the show here, just because it just seems like this was gonna happen. So it's unfortunate that he kind of tried this when it kind of worked out the way that many expected with the nature of the NBA.
Yeah, so mine this week is, we'll get into the coronavirus later about and the impact of March Madness, but I want to get to the basketball side right now. And with the conference tournaments coming up, so we already had, I think, 7 tickets punched already, I believe, around there, 7 or 8.
Yep.
But I want to talk about the Big Ten right now and the Big East, because those are the two big conferences this weekend that are going to be fighting it out for their conference title.
Yep.
And we saw
most conference tournaments start today.
Yeah.
We're recording this on Wednesday.
The ACC
but
started yesterday, but most of the the bigger conferences start today.
Right,
but,
and they'll continue through this
Yeah.
weekend into Selection Sunday. So this is all going on right now as this coronavirus case is becoming a bigger and bigger deal, especially for large events.
Yeah, and Gonzaga last night, most notably, they punched their ticket into the tournament against when they beat St. Mary's. It was a pretty close game the first half, and then Gonzaga pulled away in the second half. But it was kind of known that they were the number 2 overall team in the country right now, so
Yeah.
their ticket was already punched basically. But officially, they're in, and I mean that conference is actually really good with St. Mary's, BYU, and then Gonzaga as well. I mean those are 3 really good teams that are making the tournament from that conference. And so now to get to the Big Ten, we had a 3-way tie in the regular season with Wisconsin, Maryland, and Michigan State. And that just shows, I mean, the depth of this conference is just ridiculous. There's possibly 11 teams that can make the tournament. And it's, I mean, just to see, Illinois, too, a huge win Sunday night against Iowa. They've had a great season. Ayo DeSumbo has just been an excellent player this year for them. And, I mean, last year we kind of saw him in the second half of the season really turn it on. And there was conversation that he would enter the draft even last year, and I think now this year he definitely will head to the NBA after this season concludes. But I mean they've just had a heck of a season. Kofi Cockburn too has been a huge contributor being a freshman. He looks like a man amongst boys out there, and he's just a machine on the boards. So he's another. I mean Illinois is I'm a little biased because I want to see them actually do well in the tournament, but just from an outsider perspective too, people are saying that this team could really go deep into March.
Yeah.
And they have all the pieces to do it.
The Big Ten tournament, in my opinion, I mean, no surprise considering lots of the things that we saw this regular season. Probably the biggest tournament to look forward to, as there's just so many possible outcomes here with so many contending teams. It'll be interesting to see how present the Big Ten is on Selection Sunday, which I think it'll be pretty large, even larger than last year, which I think is a pretty notable step up because last year was already a pretty significant presence. So to see teams like Illinois really take over this year, that's kind of exciting.
We have, I believe, 8 teams that are in right now: Wisconsin, Maryland, Michigan State, Illinois, Iowa, Penn State, and then Rutgers and Ohio State. They're definitely all locks to make the tournament. And then I guess Michigan as well. And then Purdue and Indiana are the 2 teams that are on the bubble right now. Indiana's projected to be in, and Purdue's on the outside. But, I mean, if Purdue can make a run deep in the tournament, possibly make the semifinal or even the final, they're in contention then to possibly knock out an Indiana, or even for both of them to be in, depending on how they do. So There's a lot that could be said this weekend in the Big Ten. And same with the Big East. I mean, Villanova, Creighton, Seton Hall, they're all the 3 top teams in the conference. But I mean Providence has really picked up their game lately. They've had some big wins, and I mean that's another conference that, I mean, it could go any way. This year's just been crazy because there's just so many teams in every conference that really have a shot. So that's why we'll get into later with the coronavirus impacting the March Madness. But I mean the regular season just been so
you
great.
Talked about this team right off the top of the bat with Gonzaga. Just I mean, real quick, one of the fans at Gonzaga's game against BYU tested positive, and the health officials believe that the risk for all the fans that were in attendance with this person, the risk of them obtaining it is pretty low, but contacts have been they've contacted basically everybody who sat near him at the game, and they're notifying those people. So, I mean, already there's an impact on college basketball. We're going to talk more about that later going forward, because it should, based on everything right now, it's going to only expand and affect more people, which is unfortunate considering how things are picking up right about now. But yeah.
We'll get into that coming up.
Yep, that was Show Me What You Got. Let's move into news. All right, so our first news story that I'm just throwing out here is one that really caused a lot of attention last week, and I think if you put it in the right context, it shows once again that the New York Knicks as an organization are really not that great of an organization. So I'm pretty sure all of you know at this point. Basically, Spike Lee, the famous director and also famous super fan for the New York Knicks, who's been who's made his famous appearances at Knick games for 28 years at the Garden, sitting courtside, has always used the 33rd Street employee entrance to the Garden to go to Knicks games. In the past, typically, security tends to know him. He goes to every game, so they tend to know him, and he tends to be able to use that. They punch his ticket, no problem. Last week, they did that same thing. They let him in, and then there was a holdup on the elevator when he was going up to the court level, and because he used the entrance, and they were encouraging him to leave the Garden and then go back in through a different entrance, which he was concerned about because, as any sports fan knows, you can't, re-entry is not really a thing, and his ticket was already scanned. So it caused a big conflict, and he later came on ESPN's First Take and announced that he's done watching Knicks at the Madison Square Garden this season. So, I mean, this is a big thing. I think lots of people, on one side, people are coming in and saying, well, big deal, just use a different entrance. But I think that it needs to be put in perspective here. I mean, Spike Lee, if there's anybody who is an employee when it comes to celebrity fans, it is Spike Lee because of his continuous support and contributions to the organization, especially in the face of how bad the Knicks have been. The fact that he's still there and he's still supporting and basically is the team's biggest advocate outside of the organization itself. He basically is an employee. But, I mean, policy changes are reasonable, and it's reasonable to say, okay, you now have to go in a different entrance. But the fact that they didn't even contact him about it is just absolutely ridiculous, and didn't even let him know until after they scanned his ticket and he was in the building. It's just crazy to me, because as he said on the First Take when he was talking about this, I mean, he's upset about it. But one of the main things he said was, across the 28 years I've had my season tickets, if I am a day late on my payment, my phone is ringing off the hook because they're this must have been a mistake, right? And usually it is, and then they work that out. But the point is, the Knicks have no problem contacting Spike. They know how big of a figure he is. They know how important he is. And so it's just odd that they didn't contact him about this at all, especially when he attended multiple events at the Garden earlier that week and had used the employee entrance like he had previously, and it wasn't a problem. So I think it's just another example of how the New York Knicks under James Dolan are just a crazy bad organization right now. But yeah,
we thought the Bulls were bad, but I guess the Knicks probably top us.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think we alienate our major supporters and contributors for no apparent reason. So I mean, this is a pretty big one.
Yeah, I mean, being just how bad they are, you got to keep somebody that's been as dedicated as Spike Lee has been.
Right,
you can't do that. I mean,
if you've done what the Knicks do, have done over the last years, you don't even really deserve a loyal supporter like Spike Lee. So the fact that they have that, they should have protected that at all costs. But the fact that they not only let this sequence of events happen, but let it spill out and become major news is kind of hilarious, to be honest. But yeah, so that's one big news story. The other one, which Michael will talk about, is big because, around this time we usually talk about the Cubs this year, but unfortunately that's not happening. Yeah. So Michael's going to explain why. Yeah, so Marquee Network, of course, is the new home for the Cubs. It's supposed to be. We still have yet to see anything on television. With Comcast being, it's the provider for over, I think it's around 50% of people in the Chicagoland area. Basically 50%, yeah. So, we haven't been able to watch any Cubs games at all in the spring. There's been a few games on ESPN, but besides, which actually was a really good success because of all the mic'd up players and stuff with Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, whatever. That was good. That's another topic we can talk about is should players be mic'd up. But I'll get back to the point here with Marquee Network that they're saying now that this could possibly drag as late as into I think late spring or even early summer, which we'll be missing at probably 30 or 40 games by then, in the Cubs season. So it seems like they keep saying it'll be ready by opening day since around January, and we've seen no progress whatsoever, no updates even, what is going on behind the scenes, and it's very concerning that nothing has been done up until this point. I talked to another Cubs fan about this recently, and it's crazy to me that out of every team in professional sports, the team that is having the hardest time getting their fan base to successfully be watching them on TV is the Chicago Cubs, considering their historic place as, their history with WGN and that superstation leading to their national fan base that they have and one of the largest fan bases in American sports. It's pretty crazy and odd and backwards to me that they're having the hardest time getting their games out to fans right now, because that's never been the case. If anything, it's been the extreme opposite.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to. I'm really worried right now because the backlash the team has had even ever since hiring David Ross. There was backlash there. Oh, he's the wrong guy, and then from the offseason doing nothing to get the team. To get the fans. Hyped about the season. There's really been. It's been kind of bare up until this point. So this should have been something that should have been done already, and it's a shame that it isn't, because fans are really going to be getting upset the closer we get to opening day, and we're basically 2 weeks away from that already.
It just seems like there was a lack of planning on this, as far as there's not even a backup plan to get it on. It's literally 50% of the market in Chicago.
I know, they should have kept it on.
I have Comcast. Most people have Comcast.
They should have kept the games on. CSN last year until it was actually set in stone that they had a contract. And with what are we going to do if nothing happens by opening day? Fans, there's going to be so much backlash towards this if that's
Chicago.
the case,
Chicago's experienced teams not being on TV in the past with the Blackhawks under the older Wirtz owner before Rocky took over the franchise, and the whole theory was, maybe attendance will go up. It doesn't really work that way, because marketing is a thing and you have to give exposure to your audience. So this is a concerning thing, and it might be true for many Cubs fans that the best way that they can watch the Cubs is by going to Wrigley Field and actually seeing them. So, it really changes.
But, April games, nobody, it's hard to get, outside opening day, it's hard to get people to show up, in 40-degree weather. Exactly. It's raining, snowing even. It's going to be really, really interesting to see what
groggy
happens.
and slow start to the season. That's for sure.
It's kind of painful, to be honest. But
totally.
Even spring training, every now and then I just like to turn it on for an inning or whatever, just to see what's going on with the starters more in the first inning. But we've been seeing highlights. That's all we really have seen is on their Twitter page.
Right. I've only seen highlights on social media.
Yeah.
That's all I've seen out of the Cubs so far this year, which is never the case.
I know. Usually they're the team that's always out there. Like Joey said, they're one of the most popular teams in all of America because of the network they were able to get through WGN for so many years, to be able to reach so many different fans and different in different areas of the country. So we're just gonna have to stay updated with this, but it's kind of hurting to see that really there's been really no updates at all on this process, and I feel like Cubs fans should be informed where the team is at with this. So
yeah. Okay, so that's our news. Let's move into our Let's Sit Down segment. On this week, we had the voice of the Scouts, and now former voice of the Scouts, unfortunately. He wrote his thank you letter that's up in the For Scout. Go check that out. But we sat down with the play-by-play voice, Connor Clark, and talked to him about winter sports, most specifically boys and girls basketball, but then also all the other sports and all the other successes we've had out of this winter season. As far as Lake Forest High School is concerned. Yeah. So
fall and spring have been. We talk about this with Connor, but we've had so much success this year as in scout athletics, and it's been really cool to see this year, being a senior and being in our last time watching these teams. Just the way they've gone out, it's been either state championships or getting really far in postseason play. So
really exciting. Here we are with Connor, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome to the Let's Sit Down segment. We are joined by a pretty common guest of the show, but finally coming back for the first time in Season 2. He is, at this point, sadly, the former voice of the Scouts, but we'll just keep calling him the voice of the Scouts until we get a new one, because I mean, at this point, at least, there's no sign of a replacement in the near future. Some big shoes to fill for sure. So let's welcome to the studio, Mr. Connor Clark.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome back, Connor. Good to have you back.
It's good to be back.
Yeah.
It's always good to be back.
Yeah. It's always exciting. So what we're going to do is basically what we did with your partner, AJ Shaw, at the end of the fall sports season, which is looking into the winter sports season and really pointing out the highlights and then diving a little bit deeper into the sports you cover, which is, of course, boys and girls basketball. But first, Michael, we'll go over the highlights from the other sports.
Yeah, so winter sports are basically wrapped up now. So the dance team finished second in nationals. The Scout swimmers qualified for state in every freestyle event. Colin Kingsley finished 12th on Saturday in the 500 freestyle. Chase Wagner and Jack Owen were in the wrestling state qualifiers, and 3 Scouts gymnastics advanced to state in multiple events. A record number of national letter of intent signed on February 5th for the Scouts, and boys basketball finished the season last night at 18-13. They exit the first round of the playoffs yet again against Highland Park, losing by 1 in a tough loss last night. And girls basketball won the regional championship and lost in sectionals to Fremt, and Kyle Wilhelm now will be leaving the team. So Hallie Douglas had a great career for the Scouts, and then it'll be a big turnaround, I guess, next year with Wilhelm being gone and Hallie having replaced Hallie Douglas. So a lot of changes will be had, I guess, on both teams, I guess, for basketball. With the boys team, a lot of seniors graduated on both the boys and girls, so it'll be a lot of new look Scouts next year.
Okay, so I think we're going to dive into boys basketball first, just take a look at them. We got the 18-13 finish. They had their earlier playoff exit to Highland Park. But I think that the biggest thing, at least that I would note, is that we saw a big shift in Coach Lascala's system this year as far as bringing up and encouraging the presence of very optimistic young talent. So that's the biggest thing. I mean, Connor, what are you pulling out of this boys basketball team this year?
Yeah, I think the use of bringing underclassmen onto the varsity roster was definitely a big move for La Scala. That's something we don't really see, especially from this program. I mean, we'll see it around the conference, but and even with the girls team here, we see a lot of underclassmen being played. And so I think bringing up Cade, Novelli, Asa Thomas, obviously, who started the majority of the year, if not all year, for the Scouts. I mean, Jack Malloy, he's already a second-year veteran, basically.
Right.
Only as a junior. I mean, the young guys that have been brought up have impacted the game tremendously. I mean, you saw Asa started, Cade started for the majority of the season. Lewis, Novelli, he would put up good numbers off the bench. Leo Scheidler, another great
defender.
Great defender, great six-man type of guy. Extremely athletic. So I think the future of this team and the future of the boys program is incredibly bright. I really like what I saw from the sophomore team as well. This year they really picked it up towards the end of the season. They swept Stevenson, which a lot of teams haven't been able to do. They dominated Mundelein. So I think, once you get all those guys up there, and who knows, we got a couple of good 8th graders coming in too from around the area as well. So I think Coach Lascala is going to be in pretty good hands. Lots of young talent, and I think it's going to take the Scouts really, really far.
I think next year will be another really good season, but I think 2 years probably is the year that, because Mundelein will be very good again next year because they have a lot of juniors returning, of course, next year. But, after that, once they graduate, I think the Scouts will probably be the team to beat in the conference. But, I think next year, too, it'll be probably I'm expecting the 21 season for sure.
Yeah,
Scouts, so.
I think in 2 years, I think the conference is the Scouts for the taking. When you get all those sophomores to be seniors.
Yeah.
No Jack Malloy anymore, but you have those guys.
And
Asa is going to be a junior. Some of those good 8th
big.
graders. I guess I'll name drop here. Tommy Aberly, he's a really good 8th grader. He's Charlie Aberly's younger brother. He'll be a sophomore at that stage. Kate will be a senior. Yeah. Leo and Lewis will all be seniors. So that team's going to be really, really good, and it's going to be really hard to stop them because not only are they extremely talented, but all of them are extremely athletic. So it's gonna be a real tough team to stop.
The player I love watching probably the most this year was probably Caden Owett, because he was just so athletic, and he fought for every single ball. He reminded me of kind of like Bella Ronaldo, I guess, on the other side for the girls team. Being a freshman, talking about the youth, she was a game changer for the girls team as well. So both teams really have a lot to look forward to in these coming years. So we'll have to see who the new coach will be for the girls, but they'll still have a very good team next year without Hallie.
Yeah. Definitely. For boys, as far as that goes, the big thing is the young talent. I would definitely also make note of the upperclassmen and seniors being definitely good leadership figures as far as bringing those younger players in to the system and getting them set up for some exciting seasons down the road. So we should be looking forward to that. Transitioning to girls, as Michael said, I mean, really the big thing is the two, giant exits of both. Star player Hallie Douglas graduating as a senior, heading to Wisconsin, and then Coach Kyle Wilhelm ending his 9-year basketball career here. There's definitely a lot of questions going forward here. So, I mean, the biggest question I have to ask is, what do we have to look forward to, I guess, for girls hoops?
Well, yeah, obviously both those exits hurt a lot. I mean, obviously you knew Hallie, she was going to graduate.
Right.
But at least I thought the news of Coach Wilhelm stepping down was a surprise to me, and I'm sure it was for a lot of other people. But it obviously was for really good reason. I mean, he wants to spend time with his family. You can't blame the guy.
Right.
And he's been an incredible coach here, winningest coach in girls basketball history. He's done so much for this program. So, I mean, all everybody can do is just thank him for what he's done with this program. And it's turned this program into kind of a Goliath in the state of Illinois. But moving on from them, it's kind of like the boys team. I think the youth is going to take over. You're going to have a healthy Olivia Whitty next year. That's something the Scouts missed
very
a
big.
lot.
Yeah.
She tore up her knee pretty bad. She missed the remainder of the season. And she would have been a good player to have in the playoffs, especially against that Frem team, who had a lot of size. But then you'll have Finola Somerville, who will be a senior. Molly Fisher will be a senior. Bella and Rachel, the two freshmen on the team, they'll be sophomores, so they'll have a year of experience, and they've been in big games.
Right.
They've won a regional championship already, and they're 14 years old. So, I don't know if the Scouts will be that 25 to 27 win team as they've been the past 4 years. I mean, if you look at that stat, the 4 years before Hallie came here, they had 44 wins total. The 4 years she was here, they had 98 wins total.
Yeah.
Which is...
That's impact right there.
I mean, it's not just her, but she's a big reason why that drastic change happened. But you can rely on Finola Somerville. She's got plenty of experience. She's a great shooter from the outside. She can get it done inside. Obviously, we know Molly Fisher. She's a great three-point shooter. Olivia Whitty, she can get it done inside. Lily Turkle is another big name. She'll see a lot of minutes next year. And then we can just Bella Rinaldo. I mean, she already played like a stud, especially in that regional championship.
Yes.
She looked like she was a 4-year veteran.
Big breakout performance in that game.
Rachel Cow, she's tall. I mean, she's like 6'1".
Right.
She's got a year of experience too, so they can use her inside and out as well. So I do think the team will still be good next year. I don't know if they'll be to the level that Hallie Douglas was able to bring them to, but I think either way they'll be fine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Flipping the script, I guess, too. Speaking of the Cows, flipping it back to for the boys team for basketball, I just think that also for the seniors, just mentioned, like they really turned around the program after it was kind of a couple down years.
Absolutely.
But the seniors, the leadership that they brought, and the minutes, like Stephen Young as well, Angela Flynn, Carter Mitchell, whoever, all the guys on that team, they put in a lot of effort for this team, and it showed that they were the leaders of the team, and they really stepped up this year to get where they were.
Yeah,
so,
I think we should touch on that a little bit more, because that's a great point that you bring up, because I mean, it was a big group of seniors. It was 6 seniors, and I mean, three of them started at least at one point of the year or the entire year. I mean, you saw Stephen Young.
Stephen had a great game last night too.
Yeah, big guy. He's always down low in the post, always starting. Andy, who's going to Knox next year, he really stepped up his game this year, I thought, especially offensively. He had a pretty good handful of double-digit games, which is something we don't really see from him a lot. And then you got Grant Kaus, you got Andrew Levin, who's been a great role player. He's had to fight through a lot of adversity in his 2 years on varsity with torn meniscuses. And then Carter Mitchell, him and Lewis, they bring great energy to the team. They always pick each other up. They're always joking, always making people happy, even in the most tense of games. And then when they get in, they make an immediate impact as well. So this senior class is going to be dearly missed. And they're the senior class that, as Michael said, they kind of shifted the culture here. We haven't had a winning season since Lorenzo Edwards was here.
Right.
So being 18-13 following up an 11-15 season is huge. And I think the biggest thing that they're going to miss, and it's not even on the court, is just how they embraced everybody. I mean, this is
that's big. And that's why I wanted to point them out. Like they're a hard presence, not to mention even in the conversation of the young talent that exists on the team, is that they're a big part of bringing that up and encouraging the success that we're expecting in the future from them.
Yeah, I mean, just talking to Steven throughout the year, I interviewed him all 6 seniors ahead of senior night just for like a little clip, and he said his favorite memory from the past 4 years is he said the weekend before tryouts, like all of them got together and they played football at West Park and they just hung out all night. And like that's something we haven't really heard of,
right?
Like, especially in high school. Like it's hard to kind of band when you're ranging from the freshmen all the way to the seniors. Yeah. I mean, that's something we don't normally see here. So just kind of banding them together in the way they were able to embrace everybody, that's going to be it's going to be a tough task to fill for these seniors who will be seniors next year. I believe they can do that, but it's going to be incredibly important. And I think that's half the battle, and I think that's a huge reason why they had a lot of success this year.
All right. Well, I mean, big thing is this is another very, very successful season from Lake Forest High School sports. We've really had quite the breakout year this year between
fall sports,
between the like gauntlet of state championships that we got in the fall, and then in the winter here got a second in the nation dance finish. Lots of state qualifiers left and right. Swimming.
Wrestling.
I mean, I'm obviously have a personal bias for that, but they made some very, very important shifts this year. Wrestling still awesome. Gymnastics making their presence. But I mean, I do think the biggest one to note is the giant national signing day that we had.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That event was fantastic and shows that this is definitely a senior class that has had an impact and will be missed, but will also encourage some future success down the road from the younger talent that we see. So as we move into spring, I guess my last question would be, Connor, since you're kind of at the end of your main strain of coverage between football and basketball, is there any spring sports that you'd like to shout out as far as exciting things going forward here?
I mean, a big one, and I think a lot of people are going to turn to this, is baseball starts soon. I mean, that's one of the 4 major sports here in the U.S.
I know one person who's mentioned that.
16 days, I believe.
I'll shout out my partner Shaw here. I have a really high ceiling of expectations for them. I believe they have 10 seniors going to play college ball this year.
It's a good team coming together.
It's a really good team coming together. I think they're a little bit better than they were last year, and they made it really far.
Right.
And they got an exciting season coming up. I mean, they start at Kerrywood Field. They play at Miller Park this season.
Which is awesome.
They're in a good conference.
Right.
They're coming off of a 20-plus win season last year, and
and a lot of those guys are, 3-year varsity guys.
Yeah.
Like Connor Morrison, Breck, Valone. I mean, this is their 3rd year already on varsity, so they played in a lot of big games already, and they've had a lot of success.
Yeah.
So there's, as Coach Delfava said on his Twitter, like he's really looking forward to this season.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun season.
This is big. Yep, and we will definitely have the coverage for that, considering that AJ Shaw is an existing person. So look forward to that, and just look forward to all the spring sports we have coming up, because it's been one exciting year for the Scouts so far. So, Connor, thanks for being on the show. We appreciate it as always. You'll probably be back soon because
March Madness.
It's March.
Oh yeah.
So those special episodes will be coming soon. So, Connor, we appreciate you being on the show, and
thanks.
See you guys later.
Thanks for having me.
All right, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed. Just like with Scout Scores, this applies the same way. If you want more on the latest in LFHS sports, check out the latest articles on the 4 Scout. There should be a lot coming out about many different LFHS sports. We already have a bunch of writers signed up to do some beat reporting on a wide variety of teams. We already know AJ Shaw is going to be going at it with the boys baseball team, and they're definitely a highlight to look at this year, considering the team that they have and what projections are saying. So that's exciting, but a bunch of other sports as well. So look forward to that. Check out some of our end of season coverage of the many different sports. Michael, I know you wrote your article on the state qualifiers for swimming.
Yep.
There's a bunch of different ones.
Yeah, there's a lot of new material out there for sports especially.
Yep. So check that out. And again, if you want to hear us give more information on those sports, just send in the scores and informative news to sportscoutspodcast@gmail.com. So Michael can give it a shout out when we have our usual Sports Scouts segment. So let's move into They Don't Scout Like This, which covers a topic that is pretty inescapable at this point. All right, so as we said, They Don't Scout Like This is going to be about the effect of COVID-19 or the coronavirus on sports. It's kind of a important time in sports right now, and considering how big this kind of global phenomenon is becoming, it's no secret that it's already affecting sports, and it might expand in the future here to the point where even some of our future plans will be impacted. The biggest thing that we want to talk about, obviously, as Michael talked about earlier, is March Madness. We already have our plans in place to do our March Madness coverage as we usually do, but we'll see how things are affected right now. So, Michael, do you want to go over kind of what the NCAA is doing about things right now?
First, we've already seen the Ivy League already canceled their conference tournament to get the automatic qualifier. So Yale, as of right now, is in the tournament, and it's kind of a shame the fact that Harvard couldn't, because they're the 2 seed and they've already beaten them, Yale, twice this year. So that's kind of, Harvard kind of got the short stick there. But it makes sense what they did. They took the precautionary reasoning, I guess, just saying that they just wanted to limit any possible spread of the virus, and that's going to be a real concern once the first 4 starts. We've already seen that the Ohio governor already said that he already asked that the NCAA would have every indoor sporting event, which would be the first 4, to take place without spectators other than the athletes, parents, and other people that are essential to the game. He said on Tuesday.
Already those playing games, no crowds.
So if that happens for the first 4 games, that could have a really strong trickle effect to other events that'll be taking place in the future in the first round games and so on. And also in Washington too, Washington State has been one of the highest number of cases, and there will be first and second round games there as well. So that's another thing to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot could happen. There's so much mixed opinions on this topic, as it would just be fans just play such a major factor into this tournament, but in the end it's for the health of everyone out there, and the NCAA really needs to keep an eye on that and don't get away from that. But it would just be a total shame. Everyone looks forward to this tournament every year, and for something like this to happen, it would really put a damp on this whole mood here.
That's true for everybody. I would say, Michael, I assume you'd agree with this, that's the highlight of our year on the show and our year in sports for sure.
Yeah. So
this is a big thing, and originally, the NCAA's policy right now is they're handling it regionally. If there's exceeding risk in certain places, then they will not allow fans to be in attendance, and that seems reasonable and like a good policy to take. But just the concerns that you may not originally think about, but are concerns to be had, are it's just the nature of the tournament that many people are coming in contact with many people in different spots across the country. So that's kind of the big concern. What happens
through air travel too as
well.
Right.
This is a hypothetical, but it's not that crazy to think about. What if a coach or a player or someone involved on a team tests positive for this, and for that reason, the team that they played came in contact with this person.
Yeah.
and people in that region came in contact with that person, and inevitably one of those teams won, so they'll be scheduled to play games in the future. So what's going to happen when you have a team playing in the next round, advancing to like the Sweet 16 and the next regional, trying to play for national championship, and they have to get quarantined? So the nature of the tournament really makes it difficult to handle this kind of issue. And so it'll be interesting to see what will happen. NCAA is pushing a huge degree of testing. They obviously are doing everything they can to make sure that this event doesn't get canceled, as it's such a huge financial point for them and for so many major organizations. Like there's a lot of money involved in this. So
and with teams being all these teams this year, it's just such a it could go any way, this tournament. It's more than we've seen in the past.
It's
too.
such an exciting year, and so it's like that's the biggest shame about this is like we don't know how it'll affect between now and next week, but all we know is that based on what's happened in other countries and now is just starting to kind of go through the cycle here, it's gonna get worse before it gets better. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. The big thing is like many people have pointed to previous diseases that showed up for a couple weeks, kind of became a meme, became a concern for many people. The media tends to promote them in that type of way, and then it goes away. Even though there are some alarmist concerns, but the big thing that I don't think people appreciate about this disease is that health officials are projecting that it's not going away in that way. Like it is probably still going to be around until June, which is pretty far away if you stop and think about it. So.
They're saying they could go to June and then possibly
die down
a little bit.
We could still be talking about and worrying about coronavirus in the beginning of June, which is about the end of the school year for us, and that seems decently far away. So it's a big thing, and that's how it's affecting March Madness. Already, it's affected sports. The most notable thing is soccer games across Europe, especially in Italy. Italy's on like complete lockdown now, but. So many soccer games have been hosted without fans over the last couple days. Just go online and check out some pictures of it. It's pretty chilling and eerie to look at. So to imagine March Madness games being played in an environment like that is quite unusual. So
the only game I can think of that it's been something that we've seen in the past in the U.S.
Baltimore.
like that, the Baltimore Orioles versus Chicago White Sox, when there was protest outside Camden Yards in Baltimore. That was just it was. You could just hear a foul ball hit the seats. You just hear a huge bang. There's nobody there. It is kind of like an eerie sight. If that would happen in March Madness, you would be even
players
more,
being able to hear the broadcast from the dugout. It's kind of a different feel, and it's very, very weird. And it does. It isn't an exaggeration to say it does have an impact on the experience of watching the game.
Yeah.
For
sure.
So that's part of the importance and what it's pushed for March Madness to be the fun that it is. So it'll be interesting to see how that gets affected. So.
And spring break travel too as well. People
right.
I love watching over spring break.
One portion of spring break travel, but spring break travel is a big deal right now, and already people are looking very, very hard at what their plans are.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of travel that's supposed to be going around this time of year, and it's all being pretty significantly affected. So already, with colleges in general too, with many schools not letting kids come back after their break. Lots of their students are on break, and lots of schools. I know MIT and Harvard were two major schools that did this. They're like, just don't come back for the rest of the semester. Many schools are canceling and sending kids home, which I find interesting actually, because the risk is not necessarily college kids contracting it, but it's college kids spreading it to other people who can spread it to people who would actually have severe implications from it. So, having this big gathering of people that could potentially be spreading it right now, asymptomatic, and then sending them all home to families who could potentially be more severely impacted by it is a little odd to me. It does kind of make sense that schools are keeping kids home if they haven't come back. Because, after all this, uniting everybody and getting everybody back in one place might not be the best idea. But, it's already having an effect on colleges. So, we'll see what happens to sports.
From, spring break vacations, they go to another country or study abroad programs.
Study abroad programs are being brought back.
Yeah. There's
which
just so much
again
headache right now.
is odd.
Yeah.
Like there's so much going on to this, and it is no secret that maybe concerns are heavier than they should be on a media and reporting level.
I would agree
but
with
they
that,
certainly exist on a CDC and health regulation level to the point where they are heavily encouraging a lack of large crowds of people gathering in places. So
there's
we'll see what happens.
There's definitely is too much panic in the media right now, but at the same time, I mean, there still is of concern. I mean, as you said, like the CDC is, I mean, it is accurate what they're saying, and I mean, they're strictly facts, the CDC. Right. So there still is.
I mean, that's my biggest advice for people. If we can kind of do a PSA on this, like, go look at what the health experts are saying. If there's a need to panic and buy all the hand sanitizer at your local store, then they will tell you that. Like, you will know. But there's no indication of that right now. It's just an indication of taking basic measures to avoid.
Wash your hands, basically.
Yeah, it's just wash your hands. Do all those things. And if you're sick, don't come to school. Don't, try to get to school to do a test. Right now is especially not the time to kind of push through on that. So you just kind of have to take one for the team on that. And so I mean that's the biggest thing is this will have an effect, and this is a time of uncertainty. We don't know. I mean, this started in China. I don't know if we can trust everything that the Chinese government is saying about this. We already knew that they were trying to limit the concerns about it already. So who knows what we don't know yet? Yeah. And this is just starting in our country. So
and they kind of kept it under wraps for a long time too before we even knew about it. So I mean, you really can't trust. I mean, they censor everything over there, so you really don't have no idea what's going on.
Who knows what we still don't know? We could still not know something. I mean, from what we know it still affects older populations of people with underlying conditions. AKA me, I actually have sickness-induced asthma, so I'm not very positively affected by coronavirus right now, so that's not great. But that's what the message is. But I mean, who knows what the numbers actually are in China? They've more experienced it, and now cases are going down in China. So I mean,
at least we think.
think. Again, we don't know. So that's the biggest thing. But this is a big thing that will be developing in the future, and our plan right now is to do our, we might as well promote this right now. We're doing our March Madness specials again. We're inviting people on to fill out their brackets. We're doing an episode each day from Monday, the Monday after Selection Sunday, this coming Monday, through Wednesday, and then the actual first round of the tournament starts Thursday. That fanless first four will be taking place before that, but the actual first round will be on Thursday. So before that, we'll have our special episodes. That's the plan right now. We don't know what will happen, and we'll certainly update on coronavirus during those episodes if necessary.
We'll certainly have news by next week, of course, because with Selection Sunday coming Sunday, we're going to know what's going to be. The NCAA will definitely have, news on this coming Sunday. So we'll get back to you next week regarding this, and we just hope that everything's all right for college basketball.
We'd normally move into our Just Wait Till Next Week segment, but I don't know if that segment's appropriate this week, just simply because we don't know what next week is going to be.
We have no idea.
So we'll see what happens, and we'll get back to you guys. Hopefully, we'll be able to move on to one of our favorite things we do every year, which is our March Madness specials. Hopefully, we'll have a bunch of guests on filling out brackets. That's our hope. We'll see. But that's all we got today. Congrats for sticking through and listening to the whole thing. We appreciate that. Subscribe to listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, PodBean, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Cast, RadioPublic. If you heard my promotion at the beginning, we just successfully launched the Forest Scout Presents. It'll be on most podcasting platforms very soon. I think it's already on Spotify, and it's already on Anchor that hosts all our podcasts. So that's a way to streamline all of the podcasts coming out of the Forest Scout, like The Water Cooler, us. There was the first episode of Politically Correct, which is our first political podcast.
Halftime podcast.
Which just came out. Halftime podcast. They just did an episode on the NBA. But many options like that. Any TFS exclusives that pop up. All of that. It's going to be streamlined on one channel now in the future. We'll still have our Sports Scouts channel. Don't worry about that. We'll still be around in that way. But if you want easy access to everybody, then subscribe to that and look out for that. So I gave you more information at the beginning of the show for that. So, a lot of good articles on the Forest Scout. Check that out. Michael and I, there's a reason why we haven't been back for a while, which is we've been doing a lot of big news story coverage. So check all that stuff out. That's all rolling out recently. And yeah, get ready for another week of Sports Scouts, hopefully next week. And in the meantime, we'll keep on scouting.
See you
guys
then.
later.